Hey, you're listening to Ba Asia, space for ones who are brave enough to start over. Not just change cities, not just change languages, but to change themselves. My name is Arsha, and today I want to take you back to a very specific moment. The night I arrived in Quebec City. It was deep winter February, dark, and believe me, brutally cold. My wife and I had just landed after a long trip, and not just from one country to another, but from one version of ourselves to a completely different one. We stepped out of the taxi and looked up at this massive condo building we had rented online. It wasn't small, it wasn't cozy, it was big, quiet, and almost echoing with emptiness. You know, no furniture, no warmth, no home feeling, just a stove, a bridge, a bridge, why? A fridge, and a cold floor. We brought an inflatable mattress with us that was our bed, and our friend, bless her, had left us something to cover us up with, a blanket. I never forget the feeling. We inflated the mattress, we changed into our sleeping clothes. We lay down side by side, exhausted and quiet. And then we looked at each other and she smiled, I smiled, and we both knew without saying a word, we did it. Yes, we actually did it. After all the stress, all the paperwork, all the fights and planning and pressure, we were finally here. No visiting, no imagining. Here. That moment I'll never forget, not because it was glamorous, it wasn't at all, but because it was real and mine. That night, there was no furniture, no language, no friends, no work, and no system, but there was freedom. And the voice inside me didn't whisper doubts. It didn't say, maybe you're not ready. No, it said, you finally did it, Arshia. You're here. You are free. The life is yours to build. The first couple of months, yeah, they were a bit confusing. I had no job. I didn't speak French at all. I didn't even know how to read signs in the street. Everything had to be translated. Legal documents, applications, menus, bus routes, even milk labels. And most of all, I didn't belong yet. Not to a workplace, not to a group of friends, not even rhythm of the city, and I'll be honest, that hit hard. I didn't expect to feel an identity crisis, but it came not because I regretted moving, but because I didn't know who I was supposed to be now. Who is Asha in a place where no one knows his name, his story, or even his language? But even in those moments, I wasn't even scared at all. I was curious. Some people are scared when dealing with new things, but for me, none. It was just curiosity. I treated it like an adventure, a long, winding one. And deep inside, I kept telling myself, don't overthink it. You've made the decision, so now honor it. Keep walking, keep showing up, learning. The path will reveal itself, not in theory, but in action. This episode is for anyone out there who's stuck in their head. If you're trapped between overthinking a move or beating yourself up for not sticking with one, this one's for you. Because I've lived it, my friend, and I've got something to say. Let's talk about it. Let's talk about overthinking decisions and consistency. What it really takes to move forward, one imperfect step at a time. There is a kind of silence that most people don't talk about. Not the peaceful kind, not the meditative kind. I'm talking about the silence that follows you around when you are in a new country and you don't speak the language. When we arrive in Quebec City, I was already fluent in English, that had always been my second home, but here in Quebec, English didn't get me far. French signs, French voices, French system, French expectations. And me, I didn't understand the word. When I say nothing, I mean nothing. The street signs might as well have been in Chinese. The labels in supermarket, the buttons on the payment machines, even basic forms, utilities, or bus passes, I couldn't even tell which box was for my name and which was for my address. The silence became something more than quiet. It became a wall, and it didn't just stop me from speaking. It stopped me from connecting, from building, from being. You see, I'm the kind of person who loves building things, not just projects, but communities, ideas, adventures, teams. And I've always felt most alive when I'm collaborating, creating. But in those first few weeks, that part of me, you can guess, it just went mute. Nothing, zero. It wasn't depression. It was still showing up. I was still showing up every day, still going outside, still exploring the city. But something inside me was quiet. I don't know, say if unfortunately, but it was quiet. I remember walking down the street past the cafes and bakeries and buildings with beautiful balconies and old world charm, and still feeling like I was in a bubble. I was physically present, but emotionally nowhere. That's when the crisis of belonging hit me, and it hit me hard. Not because anyone was unkind. I mean, in fact, people in Quebec are incredibly warm. Even when they didn't speak English, they'd smile, gesture, do their best to help. But I couldn't belong if I couldn't speak, if I couldn't share, if I couldn't contribute. It felt like my personality was locked inside a box, and I had no key. So I made a decision. I was going to wait for the world to come to me. I was going to find my place in it. I started Googling events, expat groups, anything that had the word English in it. And that's how I found something called VEQ. I think it was Voice of English Speaking Quebec, something like that. They were running small events for Anglophones in the city. Coffee meetups, sport game nights, walk through Old Quebec. I signed up immediately. I didn't know a single person, but I showed up. That first event, I was nervous. I didn't know what to expect, honestly. I kept second guessing myself. What if no one talks to me? What if everyone already knows each other? What if I didn't fit in? But something inside me say yes. Just say yes to this. And I'm so glad I did. Because that night, even though I only talked to a few people, something shifted. I remembered who I was. Not a stranger, not an outsider, just someone who hadn't landed yet. That moment led to another yes, another and another. Yes to signing up for a full-time French course at Cégep de Saint-Foy. Yes to applying for events when I didn't know that format. Yes to conversation even if I had to use Google Translate to finish a sentence. It's crazy. It's sometimes embarrassing. And then came the car, which deserves its own chapter. You see, in Quebec, winters are no jokes. Minus 30-degree, snowstorms, icy roads. Walking isn't just inconvenient, it's borderline dangerous, especially when you are carrying groceries or trying to get to a job interview on time. So we decided to buy a car. But here's the thing, I didn't know how the car market works in Canada. I had no credit history, no idea about registration rules, no clue about dealership tickets or hidden taxes. And every paper I need to read was, I think you know, in French. Have you ever tried reading a legal contract in a language you don't understand? Man. It's not just hard, it's terrifying. I remember sitting there in the dealership with a thick stack of papers in front of me. Insurance options, registration documents, warranty terms, and all I had was Google Translate. And the desperate hope I wasn't signing something wrong. Please. But I kept going with it. The research, we asked the questions, we double and triple checked everything. And yes, we overpaid, but we made a solid choice. And the day we drove our car out of that parking lot, that wasn't just a drive, it was a breakthrough. It meant freedom. It meant we were no longer stuck. But the real turning point that came, during French school. Every weekday, 8 hours a day, a group of newcomers from all over the world, different languages, different cultures, and in many cases, no common language, except our desire to grow. We had classmates from Latin America, Asia, Middle East, Africa, a beautiful mosaic of human stories. Most of us couldn't speak to each other directly, but we found ways. We typed into phones, we held up pictures, we laughed at our mistakes and celebrated the small wins. Our teacher, may she always be blessed, was one of the kindest, most encouraging people I've ever met in my whole life. She didn't just teach grammar and vocabulary, she taught courage, and over time, our classroom became something else. A tribe, a family, a sanctuary of joy in a world of confusion. We called ourselves the zoo, not because we were chaotic, but because we were alive. And in that room, for the first time since arriving in Canada, I felt like I belonged. It wasn't the language yet, it wasn't the paperwork, it wasn't the connection. That's what brought me back to life. That's what reminded me who I am. That's what made Quebec not just a place I live, but the place I started over. There was a moment, a very specific moment. I remember I was sitting alone. My mind was racing like always, planning, forecasting, trying to build something, anything, out of the fog of uncertainty. And then suddenly, something inside me paused. Ashia, you're in a place you don't know. You can't predict anything. You don't know the rules here yet, the culture, the people, or even the opportunities, the risks. So, what exactly are you trying to build if the blueprint doesn't even exist? And that question changed everything completely. Because of that moment, at that moment, I realized I had to stop chasing the comfort for long term clarity. I had to stop forcing my creative mind to predict a future that hadn't shown itself yet. And instead, I had to switch into a different mode of survival. Not because of survival that makes you hide, the kind that makes you show up. So I made a promise to myself, a real one. You will live day by day now. That's your plan. One short term goal at a time. You will wake up, check in with yourself, set a mission for the day, and then, no matter how good or bad the day goes, you will show up. And that's exactly what I did. I started with something small, my personal brand on Instagram. Just one post a day. That was my only rule. It didn't have to be perfect, it didn't have to be viral, it just had to be real. And that's the secret I discovered. Consistency is not about results, it's about rhythm. It's about keeping the engine on no matter what kind of road you're driving, even when life gets messy. Actually, especially when it does. I remember one week in particular, I got seriously sick. I couldn't sleep. My whole body hurt. I hadn't even showed up in days. Showered in days because the pain. My face looked pale and worn out, but even then, I opened up the camera. I hit record. I didn't try to fake anything. I didn't even try to hide how weak I looked. I just spoke. Guess what? That video, the one recorded in the middle of my worst week, went viral. 1.3 million views. Do you want to know why? Because people can feel truth. They don't need high quality lighting or fancy edits. They just need to feel the same, that someone is being real with them in a world where everyone else is pretending. That was my lesson actually about this story. And here is something I want to say to anyone listening who's stuck in second guessing. If you're overthinking every next move, if you're waiting for the perfect plan, let me tell you something that changed my life. When you are starting over, you don't need a plan. You need a yes. You just need to say yes to the unknown, yes to the process, to whatever opportunity knocks. Even if you don't feel 100% ready, because here's the truth, you will never feel ready. Never ever. When you're starting over, whether it's immigration, a breakup, a career shift, or just a moment of transformation, you are not supposed to know what's coming. That's the whole point of starting over. It is a reset. So stop trying to control the unknown. Stop trying to overthink what cannot be predicted. And instead, just show up. Say yes. Move forward. One step at a time. Not to win, not to impress. Not to even succeed. Just to keep moving. Just to keep breathing. Just to keep the engine on. Because one small win at a time becomes a big life. That's how it's built. I know it's hard. We live in a world that tells us we need to have a 5-year plan, a perfect resume, a clean timeline of progress. But the truth is, growth is messy, my friend. Especially when you're starting from scratch. That's why I say again, don't wait for clarity. Let consistency be your clarity. Every day, wake up and show up. Not for them, not for algorithm, not even for success. For you yourself. Because that one act, showing up, is how you build the version of yourself you haven't even met yet. The more you say yes, the more those tiny adventures will shape you. That's what this podcast is about. That's what this whole story is about. No perfection, no comfort, just movement. One honest step at a time. You know, one of the biggest lies we tell ourselves is this: I'll do it when I'm ready. Let me tell you something very personal. If I had waited for the perfect moment, I wouldn't be sitting here recording this podcast, living this life. I would have still been in that place, that limbo, waiting for everything to make sense. But I've learned something that I want you to carry with you. The perfect time isn't coming. The perfect time is a myth. And the window of opportunity doesn't knock forever. It slams shut if you hesitate too long. Before moving to Quebec, me and my wife did what most people would do. We asked around. We had 2 friends here. We asked about the weather, the language, the legal system, and everything. And what we heard, honestly, it freaked us out. They told us about -40, -50. I still remember laughing nervously. Like, what? That's not real. That's like a science fiction movie. My freezer at home was -18, and I could barely touch the food in it without my fingers freezing. So how does -40 even feel on your skin? Does it hurt? Does it burn? Will I even be able to walk outside? And then the language. We knew French was dominant here, not just in casual conversation, but on bus signs, street names, medical forms, job applications, contracts, everything. And our friends were honest. They said, we were like ghosts when we arrived. We couldn't even understand the name of the streets we were standing. I remember that moment vividly. I imagined myself like someone with no education standing in the middle of a city, unable to read anything. And not because I was unintelligent, but because I was in a new world with its own rules its own codes, its rhythm. Most people around us were supportive, they were cheering us on, but there was this one friend, and I use the word friend lightly now, who did everything they could to pull us back. Every single day they come to us with no reason why we shouldn't go. You're not ready, you will fail, you will have to come back. You won't be able to handle it. And I started to realize this wasn't concern, this was projection. They weren't worried about us failing. They were scared of what our success would mean about their own choices. But here's the thing. Me and Nafas, my wife, had already made the decision. We weren't looking for certainty. We were looking for movement. We weren't chasing perfection. We were chasing forward. We had already said yes in our hearts. And once you said yes, the rest, you figure it out on the way. I promise you. We said yes to Quebec, even though it wasn't ideal. We knew nothing about French. I had never felt minus 40 in my life. We had no network, no income, and no plan B. I never believe in plan B, by the way. But we had each other. We had our courage. We had that one flame that was kept me alive through every chapter of my life. I was ready to build. Let me tell you something I learned through this. Saying yes doesn't mean you are fearless. Saying yes just means your dream is louder than your fear. And I want to pause here and speak directly to whoever is listening right now, especially if you are starting over or you're standing on the edge of decision that scares the hell out of you. You don't need to know everything. You don't need to have a 5-year plan. You don't need to speak the language of the new life fluently yet. All you need is this. One deep breath, one honest yes, and one small imperfect step forward. That's it. I've met 2 kinds of immigrants in my time here. Group 1 is always bitter. They miss the old life. They complain about the weather, the people, the system, jobs. Every day is a reminder of what they lost. Group 2, they are grateful. They are building, they are exploring, connecting, laughing. They're not waiting for the life to happen. They are out there creating it. And you know what the only difference is? The second group said yes. They said yes to imperfect opportunities. They said yes to the jobs they didn't expect. They said yes to going out when they were tired, to trying to something new when they were scared, to speaking broken French with confidence. They said yes to the unknown. If you're listening to this and waiting for a sign, this is it. If you're not going to get clarity before you leap, clarity comes after the leap, not before. Trust me. And if I can be brutally honest for a second, those people who are stuck, who are frustrated with their new life after immigration, they are not broken. They're just waiting for something that doesn't exist. Guarantees. But life doesn't hand out guarantees. It hands out chances. And if you don't take them, someone else will. You know what I believe? You don't need one massive success to feel alive. You just need some small wins, tiny bricks, one at a time. Each day you show up and place one brick. After a year, you will have a wall. After 2, you'll have a house. After 5, that will be a whole kingdom. And it all starts with one thing. That one quiet, powerful moment when you say yes. When I arrived in Quebec, I had one goal, one and only. Not to find the best job, not to make the most money, not even to master the language right away. My first and most important goal was to find friends. That was it. Because deep down, I knew that if I didn't feel emotionally safe, I didn't feel a sense of belonging, then none of the rest would matter. I could survive, but I wouldn't grow. And maybe that sounds simple, but for me, it was everything. You see, I've always been a social person. Back in Iran, I had a lot of friends, some great, some not so great, and like anyone, those relationships taught me lessons. I made mistakes. I also learned that what kind of people I feel safe with, what kind of energy helps me grow. So I made a promise to myself. Now that I've immigrated, now that I'm starting from scratch, I want to use all those lessons, all the good and the bad, to choose better this time, to choose wisely, to build a support circle that actually fits the version of myself I'm trying to become. And here's the hard part and the magical part as well. Almost every immigrant I've met says the same thing. It's hard to make friends here. People are different. You cannot connect in the same way. And I understand that. I really do. But I just couldn't accept it. I told myself, no, this is my first priority. This is my real job right now. So from the second week I arrived in Quebec City, I signed up for events. I looked up for an English-speaking community. I pushed myself to meet people again and again and again. Not every event was a success. Not every person clicked, but I kept showing up. I kept trying, and eventually I found them, my people. One night, I wasn't okay at all. Financial stress was getting heavy. I was anxious, tired. Quebec City, as you know, shut down early. Most places closes around 8 or 9 p.m., but it was 11 at night and I just needed to breathe. So I called one of my friends from the zoo and said, "Hey, I'm not okay. Can we just go out, a walk, a beer, anything?" And he said, "Of course." We walked through the city at night, two immigrants, two friends under the streetlights. And in that moment, I thought to myself, "Hey, Arshia, they said you lose this when you immigrate, but I didn't. I found it." Some people think finding meaning after immigration is about success, money, achievement. But for me, it starts with one honest question. What do I want from myself in the short term and the long term? That question helped me stay grounded. Because meaning doesn't come from the outside, it comes from knowing yourself and choosing what to prioritize. Maybe for you, it's building a career. Maybe it's making time for family. Maybe it's being part of nature or joining a cause or starting something new. But you have to decide what gives you meaning. You can't just wait to discover it. You have to build it step by step with people who see you, people who remind you who you are. And that is how I found belonging in a place I once knew nothing about. You only live once, and if there is one thing I want you to take from this entire episode, it's this. Say yes to the opportunity. If it is scary, if it's unclear, if you have no idea what you are stepping into, because these are the only moments that will never repeat. You already know this step, this deep down, we all do. That quiet regret we carry, the voice whispers, "Oh, I wish I had said yes. I wish I had just done it." That moment is gone now. And that's okay. We've all missed a few. But if you're listening to this, please, maybe it's time to stop missing them. Maybe it's time to leap, to start your own adventure, to honor your one unrepeatable life. And listen, I know you're scared, I know you're overwhelmed, but I promise you this, you are not alone. Every single person who ever started over, including me, has felt the fear of the unknown in their bones. But you know what bravery is? It's not the absence of fear, it's feeling the fear and doing it anyway. So leap, say yes, and join the quiet, powerful tribe of those who did. Now, please, before I close this episode, I want to ask you for something. If you're listening, and if you've ever struggled to say yes, I want you to pause and ask yourself, what is truly holding me back from saying yes? What fear, belief, or wound is keeping me stuck in this hesitation? You might not have the answer today, but even just asking the question might be the start of your leap. And hey, if this episode touched something real in you, I just ask for one thing. Please follow the podcast and share it with someone who's standing at the edge of their own leap. We're building something honest here, a space for those brave enough to begin again. And you are a part of it now. Until next time.